Hello, everyone. Today we will be reviewing practicing with multicultural competence for school counselors. Cultural competence is defined as the ability to understand and appreciate and interact with people that come from different cultural backgrounds and have different beliefs from ours. As counselors, it's important for us to be cultural competent because we come across different people that are from different cultures every day. Especially as school counselors, we have to be able to respect other cultures and have different skills when it comes to counseling students that come from different backgrounds. Another important factor in cultural competence is the first impression that we have upon people and that they have upon us. For instance, when we first see someone, we're quick to make judgment. So now I would like you to take a moment and take a look at the pictures that are coming up. What do you think when you see this? What is your initial reaction about this person? According to West, Goodman, Scher, 2011, many school counselors have received inaccurate supervision within their training program in working with diverse students population. School counselors frequently do not participate in regular scheduled supervision sessions. This is unfortunate because research have shown that consistent supervision is significant because counselors' supervision has been identified as a critical component in counselors' development of performing skills, clients' conceptualization, self-awareness, and professional behavior. Throughout the utilizations of professional development and ongoing supervision, school counselors can gain multicultural competence, allowing them to become leaders within their schools to advocate for the development and implications of culturally responsive school practice and curriculum. Supervisors in cultural supervisions can take the following steps to increase cultural competence. Step 1. Openly discuss one's own culture and how this impacts their beliefs and worldview with supervisees. So, for example, I'm Dominican, and my view might be different from yours. So I could, if I was a supervisor, I would be very open about my culture and the way that we do things, so that my supervisees can understand my point of view and also learn from it. And at the same time, they're doing the same, so that I can take from their culture and learn from their experience as well. Step 2 will be countertransference, which is the term that Sigmund Freud developed, which means it's the way that we interact and respond to our clients, which is important to take into account because sometimes we may have a strong emotional reaction to something that the client may be saying, and we don't want to insult them or have them shut down from sharing their experience with us. For example, when we side with a client more than we should, or when the client reminds us of someone else and we have a negative reaction towards the client, these are things that we have to keep in mind because it's important for us to learn how to balance both our personal life and the therapy sessions, where we can keep our emotions to ourselves and only share those that are appropriate and helpful towards the client. The last step that was suggested was to provide a safe environment for racial and ethical identity development. On the other hand, West found that cultural center cases conceptualizations is thought to be correlated to positive treatment outcome. as opposed to those who have poor correlated cases, was said that they have found the clients are more likely to be like have an early termination and have aggression of psychological distress for culturally diverse clients. Overall, there is a consensus that supervision's experiences need to be integrated and attention needs to be brought to both cultures within the supervisor's relationship and in the client conceptualization and treatment. Now let's switch our gear and move on to the gay, lesbian, and bisexual, and I will say transgender as well, community. And this is a group of people that we still have a lot of learning to do about. I sure do. Let's see what research has to say about it and how multicultural competence could be built in this community for new counselors. Multiculturalism continues to be a powerful force within the counseling profession. While there appear to be an increase in the awareness of topics related to diversity, there are topics that continue to be unrepresented, particularly with regards to the training of future school counselors. One such topic is that of issues related to gay, lesbian, and bisexual clients. Let's take a look through the lens of Switch, Glass, and Wooden 2011 to examine the level of knowledge with regards to the gay, bisexual, and lesbian clients, an issue expedited by the counselor's education students pursuing a master's degree in school counseling. According to the CAA, all counselors are given the responsibility of providing gay, lesbian, bisexual clients service which are both sensitive and competent. It stands to reason that counselors' education programs are responsible for the training and preparation of future school counselors, which will help students to develop the competencies necessary to provide appropriate service to gay, lesbian, bisexual clients. In fact, previous research noticed a current emphasis in the training of professional school counselors is the importance of developing counselors who are currently competent. While we examine the counseling profession on diversity over the past several decades, there is still a good deal of concern about the method used in counselors' education's program to prepare students to work with sexual minorities. Today, society has become more accepting and tolerant towards the gay, lesbian, and bisexual community, but clinical practices and training appear to still be falling behind. I remember back in the days that being bisexual or anything but straight was considered to be a mental illness, but today in society, we're definitely more accepting about it, but we still need more research and to become more competent so that we can better serve our community. Eliason and Hughes, 2004, conducted a study in Iowa in which they sent out surveys to counselors in regards of gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender. And in their survey, they found that participants had a negative and ambivalent attitudes about the clients, which brings me back to the previous slide of one of the recommendations that was made was to have research acknowledge about our transference, which is what the counselors in the survey came to have when they took the survey, because they already had a negative feeling towards the client, which is something that it's not okay. It's something that we have to continue to work for and get more training for, so that we can learn how to push our negative feelings and biases aside when we are in the counseling room, because that's not our job as a counselor, and it will be breaking the ACA code, because we're being biased and we're not treating all clients with the same respect. Now, back to the research of Eliason, they concluded that a significant number of counselors believe that the gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender people encounter prejudice and discrimination in treatment setting, experience difficulty fitting in, and are not as honest and open as needed to so that they can benefit from the treatment. And like I said before, our content transference plays a major role in counseling, because if they already feel that the counselor has a negative view about them, then obviously they're going to feel like they don't fit in and they can't be themselves, not even in the therapy room, which is a place where you should feel safe. You should feel open to discuss your problems. Some suggestions were made for us in order for us to become cultural competence. The start will be the desire to become culturally competent, the awareness of the self, including awareness of one's own biases and prejudice towards other cultures, and the seeking of knowledge about diverse culture and ethnic groups. Obtaining the cultural skills is one thing, and the knowledge behind it. Then it could be divided into two phases. So phase one, after you have the skills and the knowledge of culture, you can go ahead and do your assessments on yourself and evaluate yourself. And then phase two would be actually putting your skills into place in the counseling sessions. So which is why self-awareness is so important, and it's a theme that has been stressed over the past couple of years, because we have to become self-aware of our own bias in order to see them and point them out in different cultures. With that being said, and the importance of self-awareness, Carter 2003 developed a racial cultural competency counseling model, which focused on the counselor as a person. And in their study of counselors' preparation programs, content awareness is not limited to awareness of oneself, but is also awareness of the inherent culture bias in traditional counseling theories, the influence of culture on the client, as well as the influence of history relationship between the client and the counselor's perceived racial and cultural groups. As we become more diverse in the United States, it's important for counselors to get the proper training, and it is the job of the people that prepare the programs for us to give us that training and to actually put us out there so that we could become more competent and so that we can effectively deal with various populations. Future and current school counselors should master the basic skills of counseling, as well as view themselves as part of a society comprised of persons with diverse values and needs. Cultural competence is a long-term process that starts in the classroom and it is enhanced by experiential learning opportunities. Which is why, if counseling programs want their students to be effective counselors when working with gay, lesbian, and bisexual clients, then these issues should be discussed and infused into the course curriculum. Programs should seek to provide an opportunity in which future school counselors can experience working with these populations. Research has been done on ways that gay, lesbian, bisexual issues can be infused into counselors' education curriculum. Matthew, 2005, suggested that it should be incorporated into several areas of curriculums, including counselors' professional identity, social and cultural diversity, human growth and development, career development, helping relationship, group work, assessment, research and program evaluation, and clinical instructions. She highlighted the importance of not simply allocating discussions of gay, lesbian, bisexual issues to one or two courses sessions and moving on. She noted it is critical that students have opportunities to be actively involved in developing cultural competence with this population and with others, including the depth of attitudes, knowledge, and skills. Grove, 2009, also noticed the importance of personal and direct experience with lesbian, gay, bisexual people as part of the counselor's preparation process. Courses on human sexuality, which deal with sexual development, orientation, and homophobia, are also recommended, especially for counselors' education students. These types of courses should help school counselors recognize the possible role of sexuality issues when dealing with issues of suicide, dropping out of school, running away, pregnancy, and substance abuse. I agreed with with him because a lot of time people from the GBL community, they are, they drop out, they are faced with more crime, and they deal with more stuff because they just, they aren't ready to come out. And it is our job to be there for them and to help them through the process of in which they're ready to come out. And even if they aren't, just to give them advice and just for them to have someone to talk to, someone that is there for them, that is non-judgmental. Since we already examined what is needed for us to be culturally competent, I would like us to learn more about different cultures and hopefully for you to get some takeaway message from the next couple of slides about a different culture, which it's different for me. I'm not sure if it will be different for you, but and if it is, I hope you can learn from it. Let's take a look at Curry, 2010, addressing the spiritual needs of African American students. So, he states that as a result of negative attention to racist practices that has been illuminated by media and the legal system, there has been an increase in outward politically corrections behavior in public situations, including schools. And many white Americans have been systematically taught to not display overly racist acts or to use languages indicative of prejudiced thoughts, and consequently may presume that racism is rare or a thing of the past. Now, just because people don't talk about racism and they try to avoid it, that doesn't mean that it's not really still taking place. And one important description that Curry gave is microaggression. Now, microaggression can be found all over the place, and we are all victim and responsible for microaggressions because they take place anywhere, and it's usually a settled humiliation in a form of a compliment that sometimes the other person might not even see it or understand it. Like offensively, the person that's saying it might not even notice it either, but it's offensive. For example, when someone tells you, well, tells me, oh, your English is really great for someone that wasn't born here. Or when someone says, oh, wow, you don't act like you are from the Bronx, or something like that, because it's not a positive thing. They're not looking at the Bronx as a positive place. It's they're surprised. Curry goes on to define micro insults, which is a message that conveys racial insensitivity or demands an individual's racial identity. A really good example that Curry gave was if I, as a counselor, call a student into my office to send home some information about a program that they qualify for because of their grades, and then the principal walks by and they ask me and the child, oh, why are you in here? Did you get into a fight? Did you get in trouble? The principal automatically assumed that the African American student is in my office because they got in trouble, not because they're getting information about an academic program that they actually qualified for. Another way of microaggression is micro-invalidation, which is actions that exclude, negate, or nullify the psychological thoughts, feelings, or experience of people of color. And in this case, people tend to say they don't notice color, they only see the individual for who they are. For instance, if a school counselor is only promotes and gives information to the white kids, and then when they're asked about it, they will say, oh, I don't notice color. I gave this information to the kids that deserve it because they worked hard for it. These type of microaggressions have been shown to produce feelings of racial rage, guilt, doubt, sadness, frustration, low self-esteem, and depression in African American students. Furthermore, they may inflict as a much psychological harm as overt acts of racism such as hate crimes because they imply assumptions of several themes. In literature, inferiority, second-class citizenship, criminality, inferior status, and overall they shows superiority for white culture values and communication styles. Um, this is all in reference to Sue. Sue wrote a book in multiculturalism, which is great because in his books he goes into depth about microaggressions and he gives the different examples that different people from different culture have faced. For example, like when someone is in the elevator and a black person walks in, and the white person or anyone else from a different culture like get scared and they walk out. That's a microaggression right there. And he goes on to explain that these microaggressions are primarily unintentional and are committed unconsciously because even walking down the street and you feel uncomfortable of the presence with someone else that is from a different culture and you cross the street, like that sometimes is done unconscious because you just go ahead and you do it. Now let's focus on the spiritual needs of African Americans. Many school counselors have not been trained to address students spiritually, as indicated in the concept of the separation of church and state, which is why the spiritual needs of students have been ignored over the past couple of years. Schools shouldn't focus on one specific religion, but instead they should acknowledge that students' spiritual practices and orientation is part of one's overall holistic development. With that being said, based on the ethical standards of the school counseling professionals, American School Counselors Association, counselors need to be proficient in working with students from diverse backgrounds and within a multicultural framework that supports the cultural context in which today's students developed. This means that if a multicultural framework is used, then one has to consider and adhere to the needs of clients in culturally appropriate ways. Therefore, school counselors, rather than using one ethnocentric paradigm of change in their approach to counseling, should reflect on counseling interventions and strategies that are culturally relevant, personally meaningful, and promote the growth and development of each student. And we can see that historically African Americans family use church as support and as a coping mechanism in a way for them to reduce stress and need for personal growth and success, which is why we should use holistic approaches for counselors to empower clients by encouraging them to develop strength and resources gleaned from their spiritual lives. While most school counselors are not trained in pastoral counseling and care, this does not mean that it is out of their scope of their competence to allow clients to explore how spirituality impacts their worldview and interpretations of life events. For African American clients, religion and spirituality may be important to promote meaning making about oppressive circumstances or other stressful life event. Moreover, many African American rely on religion and spirituality as a source of hope, liberation, and material and emotional support. Counselors should inquire about these themes when clients mention them and allow the client room to explore all of the possible meaning inherent in the language of his or her use. In this way, counselors can begin to help clients to engage their spiritual lives and meaning in the counseling relationship. We also need to take into account that not all African American students benefit or desire spiritual integration in counseling. I feel like spirituality is more meaningful and helpful to students who have just had a loss, because I have read recently that they do like to do prayers and they relied on family members and spiritually in order for them to get over the loss. In order for school counselors to be spiritual competent in this area, then they will have to actually put themselves out there and find ways for them to learn about it. And I feel like the best way to do so is by putting themselves in their environment and reaching out to different church and to see how they deal with grief, and for them just to be conscious and competent in the area and have a little bit background knowledge about it. Now, it's important for counselors to be culturally competent because it's even more important for the client and the student, because as I mentioned before, just the impression that they get when they walk into the counseling session, the how we treat them and how we welcome them plays a major role in how open they will be with us about what's going on in their life. And we need our clients to be open about their lives in order for us to help them. But we have to do our part, and we have to learn about the cultural background and their beliefs and values in order for us to be conscious about them and be aware of them in a way that we don't insult them with our own bias, and we have to work hard in keeping our biases out of the therapy room so that the client and student can feel comfortable, especially those who come from different backgrounds from ours, and clients that could be part of the gay, lesbian, bisexual, and transgender community, because we don't want to insult them or have them close down on us because they feel that we don't understand them and we can't help them. Let's go over what we learned today. So Wes gave us some important steps that supervisors can take in order for them to become more culturally competent and for their supervisees to learn from them and also become more cultural competent. One of the steps that he told us is for supervisors to discuss one's own culture and how this impacts their beliefs and the worldview with their supervisees. Another steps that he told us that we should take is to explore cultural counterference issues, which is not coming into the room with our own biases about the client, especially when we have a client that have different sexual preference than us. Provide a safe environment for racial and ethical identity to be developed. Now, Schmidt gave us some similar but different proposal. So he says that the first step for us to become culturally competent is for us to actually want to become culturally competent. And this will allow us to be aware of ourselves, including awareness of one's own biases and prejudice towards other cultures, and the seeking of knowledge about diverse culture and ethnic groups. So first, we have to do our own self-assessment and take into account our beliefs and our view of the world. And then we have to reevaluate those assessments and how we see things so that it doesn't interfere with our therapy room. And then we actually have to put it into place when we are in our therapy room, when we do receive a different client that it's from a different culture or have different sexual preference than we do.